Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. This is the Nebraska Extension Regional Food Systems Initiative speaker series for fall of 2025. Welcome you all. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Ben Jewell. I'm an extension educator based in Otoe County, Nebraska, and one of our co-leads on our Regional Food Systems Initiative. So great to have you all with us today. We are going to welcome Beth Nacke. Beth is a rural health educator for Nebraska Extension, and she's going to be talking about her work here in Nebraska. Beth, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Um, so yeah, as Ben said, I'm a rural health educator here with Nebraska Extension. We've done quite a bit of discussing, like Hannah and I, the other statewide rural health educator, have done a lot of sharing of what our roles look like. And there's been some transition in that over the past few months, whereas primarily my work focused on food security and nutrition security. When we started, that's kind of transitioning, but there are some projects that I'm still working on that I wanted to share. So that's me. I could have skipped ahead. So the Little Free Pantry project is what I'm going to share with you today, and that aligns with kind of the strategic direction and those big three that Nebraska Extension has put forward. That's been a couple of years ago that we launched the big three, but strengthening the food system and enhancing the health and well-being of all Nebraskans. I think it hits those very easily, but inspiring Nebraskans, because this is an opportunity for people to get engaged with the work that's happening that may not already be engaged with Extension. So just what this looks like. I shared these slides with the Sustainable Ag Society last year when I presented to that group, just to explain the difference between what food security and nutrition insecurity, what the difference of those are and what that looks like. And this group's probably very familiar with that, but we're really focused on with the Little Free Pantries. That project is a food security. So it doesn't have the same emphasis that other projects that I've worked on have on the nutritional quality of the food, but just so that there's access to foods. And that's pretty typical across the Little Free Pantry efforts across the country, that it's more of ensuring that there's food stocked in those pantries and not that huge emphasis on the nutritional quality. So within the project within Nebraska Extension, we take more of a focus on the nutritional quality of those foods when we're bringing people on board. And we have our food security looks different across our rural communities from our metropolitan communities, but there's more access to opportunities than for food in our urban settings. So that's where we see a lot more efforts happening related to food security and nutrition security. So our Little Free Pantries has been, much of that effort has been focused on the rural communities. So probably people are familiar with Little Free Pantries. They've been around for several years. We did not come up with this idea. It actually originated in Arkansas. And nothing is trademarked within that group, though, but they do have a national map where they track where these Little Free Pantries are happening, which is an effort that we're taking up here in Nebraska, also to have a map system for where our pantries are, that are Nebraska Extension pantries, and then into that broader network that's organized by at a more of a national level. Because if you set up a Little Free Pantry, you can register that on the website that Arkansas manages. So currently we have 13 counties that have pantries installed. There's 17 locations, and actually I think there's 18 locations. I should have updated that number. And then we have youth organizations that are helping to manage those pantries. So that looks different in each county. In some, it's 4-H clubs that have taken that on, and they do all of the pantry management. So initial funding for the Little Free Pantries in Nebraska with Extension came from the ARPA funding, so the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And so I had received a grant through DHHS to roll this project out. And so that provided funding to build the pantries and then initial food stocking of that. And so what we wanted to look at was how do we make this a sustainable model for others to take on so that we have some procedures to follow. And so to ensure project fidelity, we created a pantry toolkit, and then build instructions that are built into that toolkit. I think I have to stop sharing and reshare to go into those links to show you that, and I can certainly do that. But the pantry toolkit is a guide for anybody who's wanting to be a part of this effort, and that will take you through all the steps like best practices, what to stock, what to do when we get into this colder time. What do we do with foods that are not um, temperature fluctuation safe, so what are the things that we should be stocking, things that we should never stock together, like cleaning products, or things that the people that can't use SNAP benefits to purchase, those are things that we can stock in the pantry. We just can't stock them alongside food items. So the toolkit includes all of that, and it also includes the link to the build instructions. And so that takes you through exactly how to build the pantry so that the same specifications, it looks the same wherever someone were to go in Nebraska. If there's a Nebraska Extension Little Free Pantry, it looks the same. So on the front of that pantry, we have the Little Free Pantry logo, and then the motto, which is take what you need and give what you can. And then we have our Nebraska Extension logos on either side, one that includes the nutrition education program logo, and then our extension and with the 4-H clover on the other side, so that the groups that are participating in this are represented. There's also a survey, so that if you're looking at that image right now on the front, there's a QR code, and that goes into a Google survey that we have set up. So there's a few of us that have access to that, so we can see as people are responding to the survey. It's a participant survey, but also a management side survey. So when you're taking the survey, it'll ask you, are you utilizing the pantry for emergency food assistance, or are you someone who's managing or stocking, a community member who might be stocking, so that we can kind of gauge what's happening within those pantries. What we're challenged with is that the survey response rate isn't what I had hoped for on that. So I'm retooling some images for the front of the pantries that will hopefully direct people into that QR code is to give us feedback, and that helps with making sure that the pantry is stocked with items that are useful to people. How often that you're finding the pantry is unstocked. So that's this toolkit that we have helps to go through all of those pieces. So as we're bringing on groups that are going to take over the management of the pantry, that they have a procedure to follow. And then I can provide that feedback of, we're seeing, the survey response says your pantry is frequently empty. And so what do you have currently for your structure for checking for, your timeline for stocking that pantry? So all of that is included in the toolkit. And what we're asking is when groups come on board and want to take ownership of the pantry and the management of that they're agreeing to a 3-year commitment of that. So and if some things happen, and if 3 years before that 3-year time is up, there's a change in leadership or whatever may have occurred, that there's a succession plan that's also built into that 3 years. So if before the 3 years is up, you're unable to fill that, who will be taking over? Because what we don't want are a bunch of pantries in communities that aren't serving their purpose, if they're just sitting empty. So we've kind of set up that structure to avoid some of those challenges that we would know that this club's no longer able to manage this pantry, and this is who's taking over that. So all of that's in that toolkit, and it's really used as an onboarding process also. So I go through that manual with clubs who are interested or groups that are interested in this, so they really understand what that commitment is before they join on. The cost to build a pantry is about $200. So the initial investment is relatively small. We do have funding. So the Little Free Pantry team won the Excellence in Extension Collaborative Award last year, which provided our team with $1,000, and that enabled us to provide food, additionally for the pantries, because that is the commitment of those organizations that take on a pantry. That is their job, is to figure out how they're going to procure food, how they're going to make sure that, the pantries are stocked on a regular basis. But so that $1,000 we were able to kind of spread that around the state then to those pantries that are existing, so they could do some food purchases to give a little support for those clubs and groups that are managing the pantry. So that funding had to be used within the year. So I have until December 31st to have those funds spent, which based on what's currently happening in with food access, that's not going to be a problem to be able to spend that to stock those pantries. Um, but I think, the method that we have established with this and bringing on youth organizations has given us another opportunity then to educate youth in rural communities about what does nutrition insecurity, what does food insecurity look like in your community. Because I think oftentimes either youth are completely unaware of it unless there's someone who's living in a food insecure home, or it feels like that's a big city problem and that's not a problem that we have in our more rural communities. So it's a great opportunity for us to engage those youth in discussions about what things look like for your friends and neighbors. Um, I breezed right through this, so I've just left it open to if you have questions, or if you, I'm gonna stop sharing then. But if you'd like me to go into those links to show what the toolkit looks like, I can do that as well.
Yeah, maybe. Do you want to pull up that toolkit? That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then we'll open this up to questions if anyone has questions for Beth. I guess Beth, while you're getting that up and folks are thinking of questions, I just, you mentioned this, but I think we're all keenly aware of the sort of increase in food insecurity, the, shutdown, the loss of SNAP funds. I mean, I know some of this has changed, but just kind of what are you seeing on the ground in terms of the increased need and how are communities experiencing this from what your work that you've been doing across the state?
Yeah. So like I said, my role has transitioned a bit, but I'm still
Yeah.
part of those groups. So hearing things, Nebraska Appleseed leads a school nutrition action committee. So I'm still a part of those emails. So I get updates from Nebraska Appleseed. They do a lot of the SNAP advocacy work. So I'm getting updates on that. So there's the challenges with SNAP. Now it looks like we're going to have to re-enroll, even if you were enrolled
Mhm.
in SNAP. And so those are significant challenges for people. Um, and it's just a delay to access
Yeah.
to being able. So I think it's those things that we're seeing. Huge uptick in pantry, food pantry, not Little Free Pantry, but food
Yeah.
pantry utilization, but requirements for that haven't changed. So if you have a pantry that they really are limited to, you can come to pantry once a month. They don't have more food. You can't really make changes to that, even though there's this greater need. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of what I'm hearing, is that there huge increase in those coming to pantry, but not a huge increase in their ability to purchase more foods. And it's a lot of those same community resources, they're all vying for the same dollars kind of to do similar work. So I think what we're going to see also is a lot more emphasis on collaborative work, on how are we all doing. There are lots of organizations that are working towards the same goal. And I know in some communities, they work really great together and function as a team to address those. And then there's other communities where it's still that's my area of work and that's your area of work. And so I think that that's work that Extension can be a part of, if you're not already a
Mhm.
part of that, of how are we working on these efforts collaboratively um, to make the dollar go further.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
yeah. So you should be seeing, this is the pantry toolkit. It's a Canva link that I have open. It's an open link for anybody to view. So it's easy for me to share this out. for others, but it just an overview of Little Free Pantries and where that started, and how that's managed, I think is helpful for people coming in. What does Nebraska Extension Little Free Pantry look like? Are the goals for this project? And when we started this in 2021, we had this tied into the education that's also happening with SNAP Ed. So there's been changes in that also of what does it look like to provide indirect education with the Little Free Pantry. So we still have all of our SNAP Ed resources and our tools, the education pieces, and so that's still an opportunity for us to share. But I think that's another challenge to consider, that as there's changes at the federal level, some of those resources have become unavailable.
Mm.
But it just really goes right through the pantry design. So this link here is what will take you into the build instructions. And then let's see if that opens up when I'm in here. So we should all still be able to see the build instructions, right?
Yeah.
So it
Nice.
takes you into
Yeah.
So this, so we had an undergrad student that helped with the layout of all of this, which was incredibly helpful, to lay this all out, because then she put things to make it really easy, step-by-step guides, what that looks like. So I think she did a great job of putting this together so that you would know what it's going to look like when it's all done and all the steps to do that. And then I've gotten a lot of feedback also from sites as they built their pantries, like, hey, we did this and we found that this worked better. So we incorporated those suggestions into the build instructions also. So yeah, so there's
Nice.
that piece of it. And then what is, nutrition security and education, some of those resources that we can send people to. And then so that this QR code that is one of those stickers that's on the front of the pantry, that takes you into a survey. But then after the survey, you have the option of then linking into the food.unl.edu webpage. So it'll take them into all of these recipes that are available. And you can filter on that website. You can filter by ingredient. So if you go to the Little Free Pantry and there's full of black beans this week. What do I do with that? You can filter on our website based on that, and it'll come up with recipes. We've been doing some filtering also on what are recipes that would be really well supported by Little Free Pantry. So recipes that are a lot of canned items or dry food items, so that we could maybe have a filter specifically if you just put in Little Free Pantry and it would pull those up. So that's something that's been in discussions, and we have some of those recipes pulled already. And then it really just goes through like the pantry placement. If it's on residential property versus commercial property, what does that look like? Because private property, you can pretty much put whatever you want on your own. But if you're talking about putting it into a park, which we would consider that a best practice, having it somewhere where it's people frequent and it's not conspicuous to be in the park. Best practice is to have it paired with a Little Free library. So you check getting a book while you're getting food, whatever we can do to encourage people to utilize the pantry and not feel the stigma of needing assistance with food. Some of the pieces that we want to have included with the pantry also locally, if you are aware of what the like brick and mortar pantry, where is your food pantry located, the hours of that. If you have congregate meal sites, those are all things that can be added to the pantry. So I don't know. I think I had one more slide. I had a pantry image. There was a green pantry, and it has on the side, we have a flyer, like what you would use for like the real estate flyers, the mailboxes that they put those in. So we have those available for the side of the pantry also, so that we could include hard copy recipes from the food website if we wanted to. But also, if there are things that are happening within the community that We want to be able to share with people who are utilizing the pantry, or even including like SNAP and how do you enroll in SNAP. Um, those are things that can be shared on that pantry. So it just gives us another opportunity to get information to people that they may not already have. Um, and then this is like that piece of stocking the pantry. So what should be put in the pantry, what shouldn't be put in the pantry. Really trying to make it pretty easy for anybody coming on board to think through what they should stock. And then we gave examples also when you're maintaining that pantry, like what could that look like? Organizing your volunteers, so having a volunteer sign up sheet, how you organize the donation, so donation tracking, first in, first out, those types of things that people need to be aware of. Also, if they're needing to rotate through the pantry. And then we have a lot of discussion about, again, like what you can stock in the wintertime or in the summer when it's really hot. And that there's a great opportunity here also to stock things that people can't use their SNAP benefits to purchase. So you can personal care items, diapers, wipes, all those kinds of things that there's not true assistance to help you purchase those things, but definitely very necessary items. So that's all a part of this toolkit as well. And then that we have this piece of this on measuring the use so that you are regularly checking the pantry, whatever your club has set up or your organization has set up as the management process, how frequently you're going to check that. Because again, it is just not feasible for most to be checking it every day. And some pantries we have that they'll get filled, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 2:15 it's empty. And what that could indicate to us is there's a high need here. And so that gives us another opportunity to put in some resources for how do you enroll in SNAP? How do you, are free school meals something that you're aware of and you can take part in? So just, it's just another, again, opportunity to get resources in front of people. Um, and it's one of those things that we were kind of hoping that would come up in the survey, that people would be responding to those pieces. But again, the survey response rate has been low. And I anticipated that it would be low. I didn't anticipate that it would be this low. So just thinking through some ways to get people to respond to that. But then it does make you, I guess, more conspicuous if you're standing trying to scan a code. I saw things in
Yeah.
the chat.
Yeah, looks like there was a few comments in the chat there.
Yep.
Marla suggested laundry soap is another
Yeah.
item to put
Yeah.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Questions for Beth from the group here. Beth, you mentioned these funds that you have to spend by the end of the calendar year here. So how do folks, if they're interested, they contact you directly, or what's the best
Yeah.
way to kind of get
Yep.
connected?
I'll just drop my email. Um,
Okay.
that's the best way, is just let me know that you're wanting that. And the nice thing is like the initial investment in it is low. So this $1,000 is from the Excellence in Extension Award. We had the ARPA dollars, that was it funded two different projects, but we had $20,000 allocated to Little Free Pantry. And the state ARPA dollars have expired. I do have ARPA dollars through Dodge County, so that's operating separately. But before those funds came in, the Fremont Community Foundation gave money to build the pantries. So
Hmm.
we didn't even have to use the ARPA dollars. So it's such a small amount. We have community clubs that have taken that on. So, and then to have the pantries built, I guess that's another piece that I didn't share. If you have a carpenter that knows how to do these things, it's really easy to do. But all the wood can be cut when you purchase it. If you the lumber store, they'll cut everything for you. Sometimes for a fee, sometimes not. But our high school shop classes are a great resource for this. It's a great project for them to work on. If it's something that's part of like FBLA, FFA, FCCLA, if they have a community engagement piece, it's a great opportunity for them to kind of full circle. And that I have a FCCLA in that's Dodge County, but they're operating three different pantries with their school district. So they do all of the management of that. We built the pantries and then they installed and do all of the management piece of that. So I think it's a great opportunity for youth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point. Lots of great project opportunities there. All right, questions from the group for Beth, or comments, or anybody want to share about your experiences?
Beth, I have a question. As we're stocking our little food pantry here in Douglas County, what is probably one of the most popular things you would think we would stock? Or what should, I guess I'm not asking, what should
Mhm.
we stock as being one of the most popular, especially this time of the year?
So that's a great question, Cindy. I've had a lot of requests for granola bars or cereal bars, things that are easy access like that. Um, Macaroni and cheese. So that's another big piece that I share with them. If you want to stock things that require prep, like macaroni and cheese, then it's also best to stock either shelf stable milk or powdered milk. Powdered milk has so many different uses, and so that's great. Stored in the freezer, I mean, you can keep that for a really long time. So I recommend that. If you're going to stock things that in preparation require ingredients that are not shelf stable, is there an option for a shelf stable item to be stocked? So those are good things. We've moved into a lot of the personal care items. So um, because that's easier, right, than thinking through what won't freeze, what won't get too hot. But all of our box items, so pastas are a big hit. I'm trying to think. Ramen noodles. So we have a great ramen recipe that I love to share. The Thai peanut ramen is on the food website, and it's a great recipe. And a lot of it is it's one of those that the pantry would be really great for because it's mostly shelf stable, but it has a bag of frozen vegetables. You could use canned vegetables in that, if we can't obviously can't stock the frozen vegetables. But so then it's things like that. But when we stock ramen, I like to stock it with that recipe so that let's make ramen more nutritious, throw out the seasoned packet and use, and then you can have the peanut butter for that. Um, and still, we're not getting too cold to have peanut butter or things stocked in there. For some sites and their pantries aren't mounted outside, if there's the option to move it indoor inside a vestibule for the winter, that's always a good option. Yeah, peanut butter. Marla, peanut butter's in that recipe.
And then a question here about the surveys themselves from Matea, wondering about paper pencil survey or a Dropbox kind of thing. Do you think that's feasible, or is that something others have considered or already done?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's feasible if you have the capacity to do that. So I think that's the challenge is that I don't want to add work to
Hmm.
anybody either, because then that's just one more thing that you're checking. But I think it is an option. It's definitely something that we talked about. First, it's the QR code. That's easy for me to print that survey in a paper format. So, um, and then that would be an easy collect because it would be just easy to enter it into as far as like data collection, you don't need to send a paper copy to me if you can just go into that link and just enter in that data
Hmm.
into the Google form. So that, I think that could be pretty easy. It's just whether or not you have the capacity to do that. And some of the pantry sites are managed by extension. Because we
Hmm.
have some in Douglas Sarpy. We have two on the Dodge County site. So it's easier then for us. It's right there at the workplace, and it would be easy for us to do that. But the partners, I'm always hesitant to add additional work to my partners when they've
Yeah.
already taken on something that takes a lot of thought process to decide, how are we going to do this and who's going to be responsible. It's not just set up a pantry and walk away, you know. And then working with other food pantries, yes. Um, so That could be in a variety of ways also. As they're doing food drives, that could be that they're including the Little Free Pantry site in their food drives so that they're allocating foods to that. I know one challenge that I've heard from the food pantry in Fremont is that when they do food drives, a substantial amount of food that's donated came from the pantry. So
Hmm.
there's probably an opportunity there for additional education on how do we use these items, or really advocating for people coming in when it's choice pantry time, because they're a dual model pantry. So you can come in and just get a box that's pre-filled, or you can choose to shop. Obviously, you choose to shop, you're shopping for things that you would use, and so it limits that. I don't know what to do. It's Spanish rice. That always comes up to me because there's the pantry in Schuyler was the same thing. They had all this Spanish rice that came in from I think that came in from the food bank, or that might have even been a packaging, like a United Way food packaging event that did that. And nobody wanted it. Nobody knew how to use it. And it wasn't really Spanish rice. So for those who are part of the Hispanic community, where this is not authentic Spanish rice. And so we really had to get creative with different recipes and things for that. So I think working with the pantries on that also, on if we're getting feedback, or what things are coming out of our Little Free Pantries frequently, or if we're seeing a lot of things coming in that are that came from the food pantry. Um, and I think that they know what things have come from the pantry based on what they get from the food bank, but things that get donated from the grocery store, obviously, if it's a Hy-Vee brand, whatever, then that could have been anybody. Their website's Chelsea. Oh yeah, canned chicken. Yep. Yeah. So the canned chicken, canned tuna. So we did a lot of the packet tuna and chicken also. Um, but yeah, canned soups. I got a lot of requests for canned soups also. And then we do that whole conversation that we would have. I don't know how many of you have been a part of those conversations with like backpack efforts of what are the things that we would want to stock in there to meet some kind of nutrition standards that we've assessed that need to be met or we want to meet. And then safety pieces. So never stocking anything that has the pull ring tabs because those are a cut hazard. And so then we've had some discussion on that. If you're getting a lot of stocked items, do people who are coming to your pantry need can openers? Because there was a survey that was done with the food pantry in Fremont, and that was one of the biggest needs that people had is I get these items, but I don't have a can opener. And so we can do that too in the Little Free Pantries. We can stock cooking utensils and see, how quickly are those things that would be colanders. I mean, they take up a lot of space, but those are really useful tools. And that's like a whole nother project that I have where students can enroll and then choose utensils that would be helpful in their home. So I kind of have a list of like 15 identified kitchen utensils that are needed. And so I have that list also of things so if you're thinking, what would that be? What could that look like? And I don't want to take up too much space. This is an option. There's options to expand your because they're not huge, right? The pantries aren't huge, but you can always have a storage tote underneath that's anchored to the ground where you can have those types of things where you could have rolls of toilet paper, and paper towels, and you could have some of those toiletry items if you didn't want to take up space in the pantry.
That's great. And then Beth, would you in the chat maybe put the link to the page? I know you mentioned there's well,
Yeah.
food.unl.edu obviously has a ton of resources and recipes and things like that. But if there's kind of a specific page for the little free pantries, that would be great to get in the chat for folks.
Yeah, I think it's let me find that then because it's
Okay.
we navigate to that through the food website.
Okay. Yep. No worries. While Beth's doing that, other questions, comments, things folks would like to share?
I know we've seen a great increase. We watch, when we come in the morning for work, at lunchtime, when we leave, it definitely has been a huge increase in need. Thank you for doing.
Thanks for being a part of it, Cindy. I appreciate you being a part of this. And that link that I just put in there, that takes you, and that's a food safety piece. So also thank you to
Okay.
Cindy for that food safety piece on this, and her guidance on what to stock, what not to stock. But that'll take you into some of those items to think through. Um, Foods not requiring kitchen preparation, so some of those items. And then I didn't mention this at all, but fresh produce is definitely an option. And what we
Mm.
tried to do is pair that with the Growing Together Nebraska a donation garden effort. So there's also an option for your pantry to, I have produce baskets that can mount underneath the pantry.
Mm.
So if you want to have that set up, because that can really be partnered in with any kind of gleaning effort that you would have. So if you have it set up where, hey, if you have extra produce, you can bring it to the extension office and we can distribute it that way. Again, that's an extra effort, and an
Yeah.
extra step, but certainly something that during the growing season, that's a great opportunity because there's always somebody looking to get rid of zucchini and cucumbers, so it's a great place for that to
Yeah,
happen.
for sure. Wonderful. Okay. Beth, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us, and thank you so
Yeah.
much for the work on Little Free Pantries. This has been fantastic. So, our next speaker series is December 17th, 2 o'clock. We will be hearing from Dr. Selata Vegan from the Biosystems Engineering program, who will be talking about small scale irrigation systems. So, thank you for joining. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day.